What's good, people? We have another interesting topic today that's happening in the music industry. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to build something here, provide commentary, provide game, provide growth and insight into the industry. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate all the support. Now, this is a super duper interesting one. TikTok hot topics ever since it's been about, right? And maybe most people probably know, a lot of people probably don't know, is that TikTok have actually had their own music distribution platform since 2021. So in 2021, I'm not sure exactly when TikTok went live or became available worldwide, just in general, TikTok itself. But in 2021, TikTok founded their own music distribution company. So when I say music distribution, I'm talking about platforms that allow artists to put their music onto different streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc. TikTok's distribution platform is called soundon. Now we're going to get into the reasons why. I mean, we've got this on the screen. We've got this over 1 million artists have registered with TikTok soundon, and we're going to get into the reasons why I think soundon is really coming for the game, potentially, taking market share, taking revenue off other distribution platforms, what you consider traditional digital, distribution platforms. And the reasons behind that, and the growth story and the strategies behind that. So we're going to get into all that. There's a number of different reasons. I'm going to break each of them down. But before we do, I thought it would be obviously important to be able to just provide a little bit of background on TikTok, on soundon, and sort of where has this even come from. So I think it's fair to say, for anyone that's in the industry, you would have been aware or heard that TikTok had this platform. And I remember thinking initially that, oh wow, so is this kind of like one of the first iterations of a social media platform potentially directly signing artists? Because we've not really seen that, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but especially within the sort of Western market, YouTube don't necessarily sign artists directly. You sort of have to go through a distributor or a multi-channel network or a CMS to distribute your actual sound recording assets, your music, onto the platform. Maybe Spotify dwindled in it initially. I'm not too sure, but I know, it's not really a done thing. Same could probably be said for all the other sort of streaming platforms that are available online. So, when it first came about, it definitely sparked some conversations, but we're gonna get into it. TikTok isn't just about your trending dance videos, home cooking videos, comedy videos, whatever it is that your algorithm is feeding you. TikTok is not just about that. It really is about creators and music. And artist discovery. I think, one of the key things that you can say about TikTok is that it really truly is a discovery platform. As much as other platforms might like to say they're a discovery platform, or they sort of feed into that narrative, TikTok are really about that. So we're going to get into this. Excuse me. Man, I had a big steak dinner for dinner, I'm not going to lie. But basically, 2021, TikTok was founded. soundon was founded in 2021. And it's basically designed as a distribution platform, but their sort of USP, their sort of selling point is that it's really a platform for new musicians. And the reason it's a platform for new musicians is because it helps them get discovered. And obviously TikTok has founded this platform. So it makes all the sense that the sort of new music discoverability platform is basically where new artists can go to now also distribute their music. Again, if I remember correctly, I believe that when artists were to sign up to soundon initially, I'm not sure if this is the case now, but back in the day, a few years ago when they sort of launched, any new artists that sort of signed up to soundon to distribute their music, I think the first year was completely free. There was no fees, no revenue sharing, no distribution percentage or cut for the platform. And then I think after that first year, it was artists being able to sort of maintain 90% of their royalty. So there would just be a 10% revenue cut, percentage cut for soundon for the act of distributing your music. And I guess that's 10% is probably, I'd need to sort of compare it to the other distributors in the market, the sort of Dittos and CD Babies and whatnot. I know a lot of them go off annual fees for unlimited releases or different packages, etc. 10% may be considered around, sort of the expected market rate, at least for sort of unlimited releases anyway. But yeah, so that was kind of the setup. I think it took a few years to sort of be launched in what you would consider key music markets. So I believe in 2023 it did launch in the US, the UK, Australia as well, maybe Brazil, and I'm pretty sure maybe some parts of Asia, maybe Indonesia, maybe Australia or New Zealand. I can't be too sure about that, but I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago it was available in those key territories that would consider quite important. So it's been around for a few years now. I think it's fair to say that. And like I said, I think the whole idea, the whole concept is that it is you're basically signing with the platforms that most artists sort of depend on nowadays for their exposure and a big part of their marketing, or at least digital marketing presence or strategy, right? So this is it's kind of insane. Like as an artist or as a label or even an artist manager or someone with an interest in the artist's success, to get in bed with, I use the term get in bed a lot, maybe I need to stop that, but to sort of be directly involved with a platform or a company that owns the platform that you're sort of depending on already, it's already a selling point. Like before we even get into the other benefits, this is already a huge selling point for any artist on the face of it, that you would want to work directly with TikTok. And that's what you're doing with soundon, right? Excuse me. So this is the headline. Over 1 million artists have now registered with TikTok soundon. And now it's expanding into Germany. So off that list, I've already told you, Germany wasn't there. Germany's a huge, a massive music market, right? Germany's like, I'm pretty sure, maybe if we just quickly Google search, what percentage share does Germany hold in, we'll talk about streaming in general, in the streaming market. Maybe I should put music streaming there, so it's a little bit more clear for the AI. And obviously we're just going to go straight off the AI answer. We're not going to do too much research into this because we want to get into the TikTok story, soundon story. But we're talking about 5.9% of the global audio streaming market revenue in 2024, and is projected to lead the European regional market by 2030. So that's talking about basically being the biggest streaming market in Europe. I'm not sure if that would include the UK. It says European regional market. I know UK no longer in the EU. So I'd need to double check that. But yeah, huge amount. In 2024, audio streaming accounted for 70% of the total recorded music revenue in Germany, and 78% of the digital and physical retail sales within the country. So I think it's fair to say it's a very important market, right? Looks like this data may have come from a few different sources, but like I said, we just wanted to get an idea of the sort of position or the importance of Germany as a market for context of the story. So here's a story. TikTok SoundOn has now seen over 1.1 million artists register access to its services since launching in 2022. So it launched 2022 technically, must have been announced or available someplace, somehow, beta stage maybe in 2021. Now the platform is launching in Germany, the world's fourth largest... Oh, there you go. We didn't need to look it up. The world's fourth largest recorded music market. The Germany rollout marks the distribution and services platform's latest expansion following the initial launch in markets such as the UK, US, Brazil, and Indonesia, and Australia. Cool. So here's the main head point, the main sort of headline of the story. According to its website, SoundOn currently counts 1.158 million partners and growing. Music Business Worldwide understands this to mean artists who have registered, i.e. signed up on the platform. Of these registered artists, TikTok noted today, SoundOn has seen hundreds of thousands of acts release music and generate revenue on the platform. So we're talking about over 1 million artists have now signed up to this platform. I don't know how... So the sort of main comparison that comes to me when I think about DIY online distribution platforms, and that's maybe because of my own experiences, not as a musician, but as working with artists and musicians, and, you know, people I've worked with in the industry, is the sort of main comparative that I would always draw to is Ditto, right? So we all know Ditto, one of the probably biggest, most simplest, easiest sort of DIY online distribution for music streaming platforms available. So how many artists, again, just for a rough general query here, are signed up to Ditto? Ditto supports over 2 million independent artists and labels worldwide. 2 million. So that's huge, right? So they've had a report here as well. Same source, Music Business Worldwide. Ditto has extraordinary growth amid global expansion as firm surpasses 2 million registered artists, and this was in 2025. Now, when did Ditto launch? That's my question here, because we know these guys. We know Matt Lee was very sort of he had his day on Twitter. I was always a big fan and follower of what these guys did, man. I think their story is incredible. I believe it started as window cleaning, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, and they used the name Ditto. And yeah, it was very inspirational. I really mess with Ditto. I'm a really big fan of their platform. I know a lot of artists have had their experiences with them, but you know, there's been huge success stories, and I really appreciate what these guys have done for the industry and what they stand for. So, you know, really interesting story. But when did Ditto launch? That's the question I have. I'm just going to quickly look it up here, because they've basically they've got double. Let's say they've got double of what SoundOn currently has. Ditto, music streaming. When did it launch? I've got a funny feeling it was a long time ago. Right, Ditto launched. So here we go. Ditto was launched in 2005. 2005 by Lee and Matt Parsons. It's a very long time ago. They were really ahead of the game. Really ahead of the game. It was probably, again, different sort of offering and iterations of how things work, but we're talking a very long time. So if we are saying 2005 as a I'm not sure exactly how it was started. Maybe the iTunes Store, Google Play, all that sort of thing. We're talking about nearly 20 years, 20 years this year, right? Now, for comparison, SoundOn has hit 1 million in a few years. Now, you can't really compare them because Lee and Matt Parsons are, you know, you can't compare those two to the power of a ByteDance-owned TikTok platform backed by supposedly, allegedly, Chinese government or whatever, you know. I mean, that's a whole nother story. And you know, the premise of this video is that not the threat, but the ability and the reasons why I think TikTok and SoundOn is going to make a huge splash in the industry, which again, we're going to get to that list quickly after this. So we're not going to sort of look at TikTok as a wider issue here and the sort of the politics behind it, because I know that's a whole nother story as well. We're not looking at that right now. We're looking at why TikTok with sound on is a huge story, is a huge platform, and potentially going to really shake everything up when it comes to the distribution and label world, right? So that's where we are. That's where we are with this. So essentially the point is, SoundOn has seen a huge amount of significant growth. Huge amount of significant growth. Now, why is this important? You know, this article talks about, you know, what they do, some of the quotes from the execs there, and then they've given some artists examples. Wiz the MC is a huge one that they talked to an interview in this one. South African German artist Wiz the MC achieved success on SoundOn with his Show Me Love featuring Bees and Honey, reaching number 3 in the singles charts in Germany and the UK. He also did a remix with Tyler, which generated 500 million streams on Spotify, helping Wiz the MC gain more than 29 million monthly listeners. So this is insane, right? So, and this is all through the power of SoundOn and thus TikTok. Now, we're going to get to it. I know I rambled on quite a bit here, already like 15, 16 minutes in. But here's the thing. And whilst these reasons are speculative, I think they're grounded in what we're seeing with not only success stories, but also the state of the industry and the state of music, right? So the first reason is that there is a huge amount of, with SoundOn and TikTok both being owned by the same company, that's what we call vertical integration of music promotion and music distribution and consumption. SoundOn gives direct TikTok ties to artists. TikTok is already the primary promotional tool, right? TikTok is already probably one of the most important, if not the most important, digital platform tool that all artists, labels, managers, everyone, agents, everyone are depending on, they're utilizing in order to promote their music. Songs go viral on TikTok. It boosts streams elsewhere, you know? So they've already got that in the bag. If you're not servicing TikTok, people won't necessarily take notice. I think you still can, but in general, it's fair to say that they won't take notice. So if TikTok vertically, if TikTok vertically integrate distribution as well, they're capturing even more of the value that's being generated. So not only in the promotional leverage that they already have, but with regards to the streaming revenue as well. They're getting involved in the distribution game. Before, they were a product outside of revenue generation from streaming and distribution. Now they've vertically integrated themselves into, why can't I say vertically, by the way? Vertical integration, right? They've integrated themselves in a vertical manner because they're therefore being able to capture more value from the overall chain, right? From the overall pyramid. So that's one of the reasons. And I think the fact that TikTok is already such a huge primary promotional platform, it's only going to benefit them even more, even further, right? So the second thing is, we'll pull up TikTok while we've got this here. So this is Wiz's channel. He did the remix with Tyler, obviously also from South Africa. I'm not trying to get copywritten, so I'll mute it. But 4.6 million plays, nearly 500,000 likes. We don't know how many click-throughs, but click through to the music, go listen to the music, streams are up. It's a huge tool. It's a very important tool for artists, and we know that already. Now, the reason that they can benefit most from it, the artists that sign to TikTok, is obviously TikTok have control and discovery they have control over the discovery and the trends on the platform. They're deciding essentially, yes, they have algorithms, but they're essentially deciding what they're going to push, what's going to be rewarded, and what isn't going to be that popular. You know, both new and old songs are being discovered on the platform via short video. That's it. That's what's happening. When it comes to music on TikTok, that is what is happening. That's it, you know. If TikTok sort of begins to push their own artists that they've signed through soundon, they can algorithmically boost that artist. They're at an advantage. They are able to do that. They control it. There's no reason they can't do that. It's not anti-competitive. It's not this. It's not that. It's what they do. They can own it, right? I always give the example of, so I was in music journalism for a long time. I interviewed a lot of artists, maybe over 200 artist interviews I conducted over my time, right? It was a mix. It was mainly rap and hip hop, R&B artists from the UK, some from the US, some from worldwide places, you know. And so, and what always got me was that at the time, you know, we had our own platform, and then for whatever reasons that ended. And so I started shopping. I was still getting interview opportunities from PRs, right? So I started shopping around these interviews that I have with artists and seeing which publications want to pick them up and take them off me, and I can put them on their publication. I'll get a bit of exposure. They'll get some content. All's fair in love and war, right? Everyone's happy. What I always envisioned was a PR firm who, by the way, were getting paid to secure these placements. So what would happen is, and obviously not to waste people's time that don't know how this already works, but with PR, traditionally in music, labels or management companies or artists will pay a PR person or a firm for publicity, and we're specifically not talking about radio, TV or anything, we're specifically talking about online blogs and online publications for written interviews, right? For written features, articles about their artist, about their releases. They'd get paid for that. That's the campaign money. They'd get paid as part of the budget, right? PR is a fundamental part of any marketing budget. But the writers and the people putting the articles together, they weren't eating off that budget. If they were getting paid at all, which for a lot of my time, I didn't get paid from all these articles that I wrote. If they were getting paid at all, it was either from the magazine for commissioning the content, or if they owned the platform, it was from ad revenue or sponsorship or however else they would have monetized their online blog at the time. As a writer, I wasn't. You know, there was it wasn't really my sort of forte to be a full-time music journalist. It was kind of my way into the industry. But what always then stuck with me is that why would the PR firm not want to just build their own platform so they can guarantee coverage? Like if a PR firm had a network of online magazines that they owned, then okay, fine, you're basically just paying for PR, but it's kind of guaranteed. Like you're not pitching it. And there's a bunch of nuances to that. But what I'm trying to, and you know, there's reasons that it wouldn't work, and there's best practices for the industry, and there's conflicts of interest, and there's a whole bunch of reasons, right? So I fully understand and appreciate that. But what I'm basically getting at is TikTok have created that model with soundon. The fact that they already have one of the key promotional tools that artists depend on, and now they're vertically integrating, I said it right, vertically integrating into distribution as well. They're essentially cutting out a middleman that doesn't need to be there. Like they own both sides. They can process both sides of things, and they have a certain amount of control which allows that. So it makes total sense. It's again another reason why I feel like it's proven to be a success with this 1 million artists that we're now seeing signed up to the platform, right? So that's another thing. And yeah, the next reason is basically touching on the point in the story I've just explained to you, that you're basically, with this process, with this integration, soundon are reducing the intermediaries between the artists and themselves as a platform. So typically artists would work via labels or distributors, right, to get their music onto streaming platforms. Soundon cuts out and disrupts some of that middleman chain. It becomes more of a full stack promotion, distribution, audience, and streaming opportunity or service. And as a result, it basically potentially reduces the bargaining power of record labels in the wider industry. This is a really big potential competitor for a lot of record labels and a lot of other distribution platforms. Because as much as I really like Ditto, and as much as I really like what a lot of labels and distributors have done, they don't own TikTok. They don't own Instagram. They don't own Facebook, Twitter, X, Discord, Twitch. Amazon owns Twitch. But what I'm trying to say is they don't actually have in their arsenal what you could call a guaranteed sort of spot, a guaranteed slot, a guaranteed promotional success. Whether that's frowned upon or seen as unfair or anti-competitive or not, right? What they do have is relationships. What they do have are teams of expertise and budgets and offering. And again, this is the same old story of what labels can still offer and what distribution partners can still offer you. But they don't have TikTok, bro. They don't have TikTok. SoundOn has TikTok. SoundOn is TikTok. That's the scary part. That's the incredible part. That's the inspiring part about this. So they're cutting out what you could argue is nonsense. Excuse me. Always, I need to... Yeah, anyway. The next reason I feel like this is really a really big deal is because of this integration and because of what the platform they already own, TikTok, it already has a data advantage. Now, data is something that we see a lot of distribution partners and labels and industry experts always comment about how important it is to own your data, own your audience, know who your audience are. This is our selling point. We can provide you with all the data and dashboard and stats that you ever need to succeed in any industry and become a campaign expert and really own your audience, right? More time, it's true. Like, you know, a lot of data is available for artists when they sign with distribution partners. A lot of data isn't. And the thing with data, from my experience as well in the label world, is the fact that you can manipulate it to tell a story you want to tell it. TikTok has tons of data on what users are listening to, their activities, what videos are catching on, what snippets are trending, what snippets are about to trend, why they're about to trend. And all this data can feed into sound on artists, and it can sort of tell them which sound on artists they should be pushing because they're about to blow or they're about to have a tremendous amount of success on the platform. It can tell them how to promote it, and it can tell them where to promote it. And you can look into it can tell you why to promote it as well. The data that is shared between other platforms and other labels and distributors, I would argue is, and again, I'm not a data expert. Data wasn't really my thing. It's a very important part of what I did at the labels, but I wasn't in the data team. I wasn't sat on, whatever platform doing Excel sheets, although it felt like it sometimes. Talk to anyone in the label, they'll tell you it feels like that sometimes. But this is what gives them the edge. This is what gives SoundOn the edge here. Because, this is what gives them the edge over the sort of traditional industry players, if you can put it that way, who will probably have less insight on potential virality or user sentiment when it comes to data. Because they don't own Instagram. So whatever data they can see from Instagram, which is actually quite limited from what I can see. Yes, there are other tools and platforms. There's your chart metrics. There's a bunch of them, right, that industry professionals use, which give you insight. it's never going to be the same if you don't own the platform. Like you're going to see way more than you'll ever see. Than you soundon are going to see way more information from TikTok than Ditto will, or Sony will, or Universal will, depending on the deals, whatever's going on, blah blah blah, etc. Right. So again, it's another huge reason. It's another huge reason as to why soundon has a huge advantage in this story, in this industry, and with this growth of soundon. And then I guess the final point I really had on this was the monetization paths of this platform of soundon. So obviously they have, as a distribution platform, they'll have revenue from streaming distribution, right? They potentially will already have revenue from increased usage of soundon, of TikTok, though indirect. The more people use TikTok, obviously, the more ad revenue that's generated on the platform. And perhaps in future, there'll be more integrated monetization for artists via TikTok. And there already is. You already have all the merch stuff. There's a bunch of stuff going on that platform, right? There's already a huge amount of monetization opportunities for artists and creators in general on TikTok. Maybe they'll introduce other things, subscription models, special features, tiers, all that sort of stuff, right? So there's a huge amount of different monetization paths that soundon can take as well from what they're building here. So in my mind, this is a huge move. This is like the fact that they've hit 1 million subscribers or a million artists signed up to their platform is a sign of things to come. And whilst again, major labels, I think they are still very fundamental part of the industry. They own a lot of catalog. They're able to offer things that other distributors can't, such as tapping into international markets, getting your hands on bigger budgets, expertise, connects, contacts, all that stuff. I wouldn't take my eye off this if I were them either. And it's not just majors, it's other distribution platforms as well, independent ones as well. This is huge. This is huge. We always say that Spotify was a tech company and, unlike the other streaming platforms, it's not backed by a bigger tech company, the same way Amazon Music is with Amazon, Apple Music is with Apple, all the other ones, right? Most of them have some sort of tech company backing them. Spotify doesn't have that. They're streaming consumption platforms. This is a distributor who owns the biggest promotional platform that all artists are using worldwide. So this is forward moving, right? This is moving that way. Or that way I'm watching it on the screen. But yeah, this is why it's so fascinating, and this is why I wouldn't take my eyes off it if I were a distributor. We're potentially looking at the very future of music industry in the palm of your hands. Distribution, consumption. There's tools for production on your iPhone as well, all in one, right? And this is it. It is potentially soundon. This could be it. Now, like I said at the start of the video, TikTok is another issue in general. Politically, it was at threat. I haven't really delved into that topic too much, but that's a whole thing to bear in mind. And there are potential risks and downside to this as well for the TikTok platform, for soundon. I mentioned sort of anti-competitiveness. Artists and labels may worry about fairness with this platform, like how much of their revenue share, is being made available or public knowledge. How's it working? What is this the strategy or the formula behind this for artists? Is there an issue with the sort of transparency of how algorithms work? Is that a concern on TikTok? And will that negatively impact the effect of these artists signing up to the platform? The same way we're seeing the boycotts with Spotify, TikTok has its own concerns, and I've known and come across artists that won't touch the platform because of the potential political issues or alleged political issues, right? So, that's potentially one risk. That's one thing we could maybe look at and say, well, okay, there's still a huge amount of threats. As amazing as this is for TikTok, there's a huge amount of threats for it. Politically as well, like I said, there's a lot of regulatory scrutiny on the platform that we've seen as of late. It sort of, it didn't it go down for a day or so in the US for a while. We look at the fairness of promotion, again, anti-competitiveness, the sort of data concerns, alleged data concerns with China and the US. Some countries still don't even have TikTok. So how can you promise worldwide distribution on a promotional level when you don't even have TikTok? And then the other sort of concern is maybe the dependence on TikTok's algorithm. Like, typically speaking, when you're looking at an artist campaign, it's more than the digital side. There are marketing elements, there are international elements, there are radio and promo elements. Is there an over dependence on TikTok's algorithm? Does that make artists a lot more vulnerable? Especially if they're going through the soundon platform as well. I think if you were to go through an independent distributor like a Ditto, you've got no sort of specified association with any other online promotional platform. You treat TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or whatever, Twitch, all equally. But if you're going through TikTok's platform to get your music out to the rest of the other platforms, then there's already an allegiance, there's already an alliance there. And so if you fall out of favour, are you putting yourself at risk as an artist? Are you less likely to get the promotional activities and promotional editorial support that soundon can provide for other artists that are popping on their TikTok platform? That's a risk as well. So, bunch of different things we just explored here. Essentially, I think what it means is that competition is increasing for labels and there's a lot more pressure and they're going to have to adapt a lot quicker. I think it means that streaming platforms in general, it's a difficult one because, there's a lot of relationships, but do they start to look at how they can get directly involved with artists or not? Is that something that you think they could potentially do? Let me know in the comments. And what about regulators? Is this going to be an issue where the law has to intervene in whatever territory it is? Could TikTok grow even further? Is soundon just the start? Could they start to acquire labels and expand that way into different territories and markets and distribute those labels through soundon? There's so much that could happen. Could they move further? Like, TikTok is one tool, but could they move further into artist services in general? Could they provide other marketing tools, or would that be detrimental? Should they just stick to TikTok? There's a lot here to unpack. There's a huge amount to unpack. So those are my thoughts. In general, I'd say that soundon is in a very, very, very strong position. It's a very interesting time for the industry. But yeah, let me know what you think. I didn't share too much data in this one, but I think it's clear to see that we're seeing a huge amount of growth on soundon, and this isn't just your standard distributor. They have access to something which no one else does, and that is the selling point, and that is where I think they can really, really grow if it's played correctly and if TikTok remains relevant. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like and a subscribe. And I'd love to know what you think. Appreciate the love and support so far. Peace.